man who's 9 years older than me, so that puts us into different generations, which I highly recommend. I am a millennial, he is Gen X, and my crippling anxiety and his crippling apathy really balance each other out.
Welcome back to the conversation here at the Free Will Burning Podcast. Troy, how you doing?
I'm doing great today. It's a beautiful
We're
day.
just moving it right along. We're going to keep this as a conversational thing. I feel like we just finished the last conversation, and we're just going to pick it up. For those who don't know who Troy is my brother. I'm Steve. We are the Gen X Transplant Bros. We both have liver transplants, both born in 1966, blah, blah, blah. That's our shtick. We're sticking to it. And this is the Free Will Burning Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how women of all the generations look at Gen X men. And I don't mean all generations, but playfully, the ones that are still in the mix, we might care about, so to speak. And as the woman at the beginning mentioned there, it's a funny video clip I found on YouTube there, Troy. What did you think about that? I mean, fundamentally, what she's saying is that women maybe their anxiety is just not met by a guy, her husband, the Gen X man, who has any kind of awareness of that whatsoever, just doesn't care.
She's perfect.
Well, okay. You'll take two. With that out of the way, here's how we're going to do this, folks. We're going to try to move this pretty quick. We're not going to go as long as we usually do on these podcasts. We're going to try to start shortening it. And the way we're going to do it is in our old screen share thing. So we're going to bring up today's screen share there next to us. And you'll see today is buckle up, boys. It's time for how other women, I keep saying that as if I'm a woman. But I don't know where that's coming from. Is that like a Freudian slip or something? Do I need to see somebody? But at any rate, how women see us Gen X men. And I hope I'm not a poster child, because right now I'm not doing a very good job, boys. Troy, are you excited about this? You ready to go?
I am ready. This will be a good one.
All right. Let's start out with the boomers. Here we have it. Boomer women on Gen X men. And I have this on a couple of screens, folks. So if you see me looking away, so I'm trying to keep up with what they say here. All right. Of course, boomers are born between 46 and 64. Those, they were the first wave of babies born when everybody came home from World War II. We were victorious, moved west, young man again. And U-Haul was invented and off we went. And boom, an explosion of babies. That was the baby boom. Okay. So of course, contextually real fast, we'll get back to this in another video soon about what the various generations face, but the way they look at us today, according to this, what they like is we're dependable, hardworking, and good providers. And before we continue, I want to clarify, we're not strictly talking in a dating sense. We'll get to that later. But Troy, when you hear that women older than us would look at us as dependable, hardworking, and good providers, what's your reaction to that?
They must be dating us. They are right.
Okay, expand on that a little.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I'm all of that. Other than hard worker, I'm retired now. I don't really work too hard at anything.
Well, I guess you put it in context. I mean, you worked on a railroad. You were on the engineers. You were a brakeman for lots of years. I'm sure some people would consider that pretty laborious work.
Yeah. So, I guess back in those days, I was all of that. But I guess that's an accurate description of our generation.
Okay. Yes, I would say overall. What about good providers?
I think so. I think it was instilled in us, in our generation, that we had to be that to be successful in life and job and in relationships. I think you had to be that.
Yeah. And I think that, one thing when we talk about Gen X that keeps coming up all the time is the whole latchkey thing, how we all, came home from school and nobody was home, as was the case with me. I mean, for the vast majority of my growing up years, mom and dad being at work and rarely seeing them otherwise, it seems. You had to provide for yourself. And so the basic model of how to do that was built in. And then you just expand that as we grew to include things like family, as we, got older and had those responsibilities, that sort of template may have already been in place. Now, that's not saying that's the way for everybody, because, and I could have easily fallen into this other side. One thing I have done has been provider, but I was also a high school dropout. I've been moving forever. So there's lots of guys maybe that didn't do that and that shirked responsibility. But I don't think that when we talk about Gen X, that's the thing that anybody really talks about. I mean, when you think of men our age, how do you view us?
How do I?
Yeah.
Normal.
Okay. I mean, providing wise, do you think we've done a good job providing?
I think so. I do.
Yeah. Would you agree that we're kind of like, if people say, as we said in the last video, that we're the forgotten generation because we haven't been in political power as visibly as other people, we haven't had a president, things like this. Most of the people you see, the highest, loudest voices are either millennial or boomer. And so in that sense, just in that sense, if we are forgotten in that sense, that while all that was going on, we were the glue keeping the whole freaking engine running. And in that way, we provided on a larger scale.
Yeah. I just think as providers, I can't help but to think of family man. That's what I think of when I think of provider.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that quite well.
Yeah, I guess it's like the difference, contrast between Family Man and Simpsons. So it's like, which is it? I think Simpsons
Well, even
actually
Homer
represented.
even Homer.
He's probably a boomer, but he was probably a boomer. But at any rate. So, all right. Well, that's good. So what they don't like about us, what boomer women who are now between 62 and 80, that's a large swath. That might be a typo. This is as you can see there, I had this generated on some notes that I made. So that might be an artifact. I don't know. I don't think they're that old, but I think it's more like the upper 70s. Emotionally reserved. Well, okay, poor communications and set in their ways. Emotionally reserved, poor communication, set in their ways. Troy, as a grouping, what's your reaction as a Gen X man at the leading spirit tip of it? Being the older ones like we are. Are you emotionally reserved, poor communicator, and set in your ways?
I do not know what emotionally reserved would be. Poor communicator, definitely I am that. And set my ways, yeah. My way or the highway.
It's funny when we talk about it because we're talking about there's really two kinds of Gen X men that can be well, I mean, there's multiple kinds, but fundamentally two, or really three, I guess, still in the game and figuring it out, or very secure in everything you're doing, or one of those and now retired. And so set in your ways and poor communicators changes as you go through those phases. But I don't know that emotionally reserved does. And that's a recurring thing, as we're going to find out as we move through this, as we move on. But that's it for the boomer women. Apparently, we're set in our ways, as the teaching generation would tell us, which is, I guess, the lesson is don't do what I do, do as I say, or I don't know. But if you talk about divorce rates and things like that, that maybe created some of the drama with Gen X to begin with. Anyway, without sounding like we're complaining, let's move on. How's our own contemporary women, the Gen X women, their view on men? All right, now they were born 65 to 80 like we were, both born in 66, 45 to 60. Troy, you just turned 60. I turned 60 later this year. What they like about us is that we are probably like them, independent, capable, and resilient. What do you think of those traits? Do you see Gen X men like that? Or how do you feel if does that make you feel good as Gen X men, knowing that your contemporary women feel that about you?
Yeah, I do. I believe I'm all of that. Capable, independent, resilient. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's nice that they feel that way about us. I also feel that they are the same, really.
Mm-hmm.
Women, our generation, are all of that as well.
Well, then how does the bottom one on this left side, work with the other side on the bottom? Resistant to growth. Resilient and resistant to growth. That sounds counterintuitive. Because if you're resilient, you undergo processes, you face adversity, you learn from mistakes instead of bitching and complaining about them. You move on, you get better, you improve every day. And that's resilience, okay? The ability to overcome adversity. adversary, overcome I
Anniversaries.
almost said overcome anniversaries.
I've definitely got over those.
It's so
Moving on now.
all right. Resistance to growth. Resistance to growth does not go well with resilience unless it's the other one. But in other words, what I'm saying, how can you say that you're resilient and you're able to pick yourself up and keep going, but you don't want to grow? You want to stay in the same place? Hey, here comes it. I just ran right into a brick wall. I'm going to get up, run right into the same grip wall. Is that what we do? Or do we figure out a way around it? Do we grow to go around it? I mean, that's that sort of independent, capable, and resilience. These are some of the ways.
Yeah, maybe I'm not resilient.
I guess
I
not as much as I
now.
thought. They're not confused about us. I mean, I think they're just negotiating. It sounds like it's looking for some kind of favorable optimization type of outcome based on the fact that they know it's in there. And how much are they maybe willing to get us to change to conform, which is a whole another thing. It's like a projection. Are you in love with the person that you've created in your mind, or is that really the person? So the two there, but I would imagine, I don't know, I'm not a Gen X woman, although we had some Freudian weirdness earlier. But I would imagine there's some out there that are on a similar wavelength that are probably somewhat confused about the whole roles of all this the way it is now anyway, based on the way that they grew up and lived life and some of the messaging that they've received along the way. And it probably has them in the same place as we are today. We have these counterintuitive messages of truth in our life that we somehow have to try to balance. Resilient and resistant to growth. That's great.
Yeah.
Millennial women, Gen Y, I must add. These are born between 81 and 96. My lovely wife is one of these. And just like us, Troy, she's on the leading edge. We are year 2, 66. She's year 2, she's 82. Thinks of herself more as an X almost, which doesn't mean that we think of ourselves as boomers. But at any rate, she's in this cohort, 81 to 96. What they like about us, we're stable, experienced, and confident.
Yep. Yes. I was talking, my last 3 girlfriends have been in this age group. And one of them has said these things, why they like Gen X men for those reasons right there. So it came from the horse's mouth.
Interesting slip.
Well, I didn't want it to slip.
Do you think, though, that sometimes Gen X men arrive with a sort of heavier presence than they actually are?
They might see us as a heavier presence. I don't think we try to be, but it might be because our age, maybe. I don't know. Is it intimidation? Holy shit, I'm dating somebody that could be my dad.
And would it? But I mean, also and not to breed too much into this, folks. I'm not trying to say we're some kind of like Nordic gods or something here, that we should all have our own anthem like Bride of the Valkyries or whatever. But I mean, Gen X does have this like cool sort of, again, latchkey, ride around everything, play, rub dirt on it, concrete below the jungle gym type of being raised without a lot of supervision, but yet a lot of strict rules around us, oddly. I wonder though if that sort of predates if when we get someplace, and if that comes up, if a person's mindful of those kind of things, do they automatically think, oh my gosh, they might be part of like this? It'd be like if an American met somebody from Norway and immediately started thinking of the Vikings. So in other words, if somebody meets somebody from Gen X, they automatically think of Marshall Stacks and, heavy metal or disco or whatever. Not disco, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I mean, yeah, I think I guess that's accurate of what they think.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I didn't ask you, we're sort of Pontificating. All right, what they don't like: emotional baggage, communication, hesitation, set and habits. We've talked about the communication and the habits. Troy, what about emotional baggage?
I don't know. What would my emotional baggage be now? I'll never get married again. That might be because of a divorce. That's kind of an emotional baggage thing, but it's something I don't bring up anymore. What else could it be? What else is emotional baggage?
Well, that is a form of emotional baggage that would be called a limiting belief, meaning that you do not see something as possible in your life. Therefore, you limit yourself to the reality that that's all there's going to be. And so therefore, there's no reason in trying. So you can't even cultivate courage to try to change. There's no readiness to change happening here whatsoever. It's a state of pre-contemplation, or actually not pre-contemplation. It's contemplation with a dash of victim, I dare to say. And I don't mean to, again, come down harsh, but the victim part is the fact that you can't do anything about it. So that's a little bit of baggage. But I don't say that to try to do some diagnosis here, but I
it
think
also leads to the second one: commitment hesitation.
well, exactly. And well,
I won't do that again.
And that's a choice. Okay, that's a choice. You hesitate to do it because of these other things. And so, I mean, I don't want to say it makes sense per se, but I mean, that's probably something that, and what I mean by that is that what you're arriving at is perfectly logical in the way you're seeing it, but there's other ways to see it that might be able to change the outcome depending on whether or not you're willing to make certain changes. Okay, without getting too deep on that. But I also say the reason I'm being flippant about it is that this is very common, and we all have them. I have them. I talk about this the way that I do because, yes, I am in my day job a counselor, but I have them too. I have the same kind of things. I have things all the time that I find myself saying, if I only listened to what I write about in the books that I've written on this topic, I would be a much better person. but there's a difference between the real and the ideal, and it's kind of also like the arena versus the spectator. I mean, do you really have to play offensive center for an NFL team to be able to know football, have played football, even at another level, and watched it for years and realize that guy is not blocking correctly? I mean, you have to be in the arena to criticize. You hear sometimes that kind of thing come out in places like that. In other words, what I'm getting at is that we can all identify with this in one way or another, contextualize within our lives. Doesn't mean we have to be there, but we can see how it might exist. Yeah. And I think it's pretty common in Gen X in particular, just based on what we talk about so much here, the constant adaptation that we've had to have throughout our lives. As every generation has. And I've got a really special episode coming up on that, folks. You're going to love this one. We're going to compare everybody's pain in a fun way. But all right, so millennial women, we're setting our habits. I guess that setting our habits comes from the fact that when you have to learn how to do everything on your own from the beginning, you learn what works and you stick with it until something else proves more useful. And unless it can demonstrate itself as being more useful, it's the random opinion of somebody else. And so, yeah, that's the jaded and cynical part too, probably, of Gen X, that some of these similar types of things would say.
Yeah, I'm setting my habits.
Look what we just went to, dating. Now, Troy, neither of us is in the dating world. I'm married. You're single. Well, I don't want to say it like that with you. You're single, but we've mentioned in the past that you don't like have apps and things like that. So we're not going to talk about anything like that. But the confusion here would come for men that are our age, that find themselves single or whatever, still, or maybe they've been single the whole time. There's really no clear lane in all this for you. Because boomer women, familiar, predictable, low excitement. I mean, so unless you're that's great. If you're very much got your shit together and you're just all that, you have a shot, but I mean, not much.
Yeah.
Baseline, remember, is something everybody likes, stability. But if you're recognizable and predictable and low excitement, it might be stable, but that might not be what they're looking for. And then we have this image is pretty creative. Familiar, predictable, interest, caution, evaluating, opting out, emotional and fatigue, shared history. Look at this one. I went on to Reddit, I believe it was, searching for some of this. How I put a lot of this stuff together today, but just seeing what people were saying. And I saw some posts, and some is cut out here, you can see, but this is from a woman few years ago posted about Gen X man, but she's saying to the guys there, blah, 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 and you can read about it here. But she's considering blocking him because he just can't seem to understand that she, I think it's a she, is the only one helping him right now. I tried to talk to him about it tonight, but he genuinely seemed to blow it all off. He mentioned, I guess, all that was going on with him. I can't tell if I should give him grace or kick him to the curb. And so this would be an example right there of whoever this woman was. I don't know how old she was, but this is in the general, in the 48 and the Gen X. I guess it's talking about us. That's that emotional disconnect right there. Because here's a man who clearly was newly sober, putting his life back together, probably had some kind of coaching or some kind of counseling to do that, possibly, because within his plan, he didn't open up. So I would imagine that whoever she posted this about sobriety was dicey at best after this, but still, he was struggling with emotions, which leads to the reason the drinking was happening in the first place. What do you think, Troy? That's an honest woman just saying right there. He just blew it all off. Like she was trying to help. Like he didn't need any help. He could do it on his own.
Yeah, I guess. What was she trying to do to help, though? She didn't really say that.
No, she just basically said here, people, you can read the whole thing on the screen, but regardless of that, he was he was trying to put his life back together, and I guess she was somehow involved in that or wanting
Maybe
to be.
she wasn't part of his plan of getting his life back together.
Yeah, we're on two different sides of the fence on this one. I could see. Well, this is what I mean by that. Her frustration here, regardless of who she is that she reached out to try to help, and somebody declined it, and she thought that she could help. Now, there's a thing called a writing reflex. You always got to make things right for people, and there's nobody more annoying than somebody who has the writing reflex. It's one of the top things that is wrong in the counseling industry for people who do not pan out as counselors. People that try to fix everything for you. Fixers, right? The writing reflex. So unless she's a quasi Karen, I guess.
Yeah.
If she's honestly trying to do this and the guy is honestly trying to be sober and get his life back together, he should be open to all things positive and everything that could possibly help him grow and get better. Be resilient, as we talked about earlier. If he isn't, then he's again, I'm getting way down a rabbit hole here, but I would say on the surface, still like he's saying, okay, I got it figured out. This is what I got to do. This is how I'm going to get it done, blah, 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 blah. And he's got this attachment to an outcome, and he's got all these parameters in place, and he is shut down to his own plan, which might be solid. But the might is that it's no longer open to other people's input. And so it's stuck in whatever he's doing. So it's all on him at this point. And that's the way he wants it.
Yeah. What's she coming across as, like a counselor or a girlfriend?
She's coming across as a woman posting on Quora.
Well,
okay, here's another one. Gen X women and younger men, the dilemma. Okay, this was posted by a boomer woman, and she had been out.
Hates us.
No, actually, look at you now, attached to an outcome. Jaded, cynical. See,
I watched some videos.
The ladies are on to you, Troy.
I watched a video on Gen X women that do not like that Gen X men are going for millennial women. So that's where I get my info. I just watched it this afternoon.
Oh, well, there's an easy answer.
So that's what happened there.
Yeah, it's called do better. Okay, so anyway, this is a woman who went to a meetup. I'm going to briefly, everybody's been up here the whole time if you're reading it. She went there with a male friend. They chatted a little bit. He was going through challenges, meeting eligible women, blah, blah, blah. They went on, they talked for a while. After a while, she figured out the age gap. He was about 35. She's going to be 58 this year. And I look about 10 years younger. Okay, that's where she's saying why. She's actually now that regardless of whether that's true, the reason she said that is so that other people don't say, they're automatically going to picture her as an old lady and this young guy. So she's buffering other people's expectations in their mental picture of who she is to make it more valid. Okay, so I'll look 10 years younger. People told me I have a young spirit. There you go. She's a free, free flowing, I guess, like us. We have one foot in the grave. So she gave her cell phone number and then, wished him a good night. And then down here at the bottom, I highlighted, it said, "Sigh, my men these age." She's talking about you boomers. My men my age are boring, sexist, and old. The ones I've met anyway, and I'm sure there are exceptions, but I've yet to meet someone like this. And so this gets to a bigger thing in general with men and women across regions or across generations, because this is boomer, but it spills into X, and so now she's just as basically an older woman looking for a younger man because he's more vibrant, but he's 35. He's a millennial, and so that's
You don't see much of that.
yeah. She just leapfrogged right over our boring asses stuck in our ways.
She must be hot.
Well, she looks 48 and has a young spirit, so that must be it.
That doesn't matter.
That must be it. So I hope things worked out well for her. Let's go on to this next one here, folks. So Gen Z, we have not talked about on purpose because, first off, I'm just not willing to do it because my daughter's Gen Z, and I can't picture us in the same as far as dating goes. But I do know that that's real in the world, so I did look at a couple of posts about it. There was this one, well, first off, let's look at the bottom right corner. This was a person, I don't even know who it was. It was an individual. But I liked the way they said what they said. And they were what it says here. It's difficult to definitively say why Gen Z women might find Gen X men more sexually attractive than male millennials. All right, it says perceived maturity and stability. We've talked about that. Cool factor. We've talked about that extensively. And at the end of the last video, we talked about Gen X. I mean, we're the coolest generation. That's something. You just Google it. Just Google it. What's the coolest U.S. generation? Google knows. ChatGPT knows too. Rebellion against conformity. Well, that's because we never had a solid framework to plan from the vast majority of us as a generation for the mythos of the generation and the lived experience of the vast majority of us. And less mainstream. Again, we came from a time before we had fads in the way they are today. Fads in our days were things like hair metal. And that took freaking 6 years. All right. A fad today is gone in 3 months or 2 weeks or whatever. Or I mean, I don't even know when the last fad was. We had all kinds of fads back in the day, but they were eras is what they really were. Not just sort of marketing ploys to keep everybody's dopamine, long enough to keep them to click on the next version of it. So in that way, given the fact that Gen Z women would have been in around a time where people, are not mature and stable around them, obviously, because they're younger. Gen Z guys are younger. The cool factor, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to call out Gen Z guys by any measure. I don't know what they define as cool today, but I mean, if Chevelles and Marshall stacks and all that is still cool, then that was us when we were in that era. That doesn't mean we're that now, although we do have those things sitting here. And rebellion, who knows? I don't know that the current generation's rebellion as if they're just not finding a place at all and they don't have a mainstream. I think they're mostly feeling screwed.
Yeah. I don't understand them at all. I don't.
Right. No, and I don't mean that as that they're all thinking that life is gone or hopeless. All the stuff with the college degrees maybe not mattering in the way they once did, and the job market and AI and just the world in general, and maybe they're going to get drafted. I mean, they got a lot of shit on their plate right now. So it says Gen Z and Gen X are extremely opposite. Gen X seemed to be the last generation that jumped right into adulthood out of high school. Absolutely. In fact, I dropped out of high school and then went right into adulthood. Gen Z seems to be people well into their 20s still living with their parents. And I'm going to say, yeah, that's the case, but I also don't want to shame them for that because, again, it wasn't the same. It's not the same now.
Nope, it's not. It's a lot different now.
No, a Gen Z person can't do what I did in 85 and just sell everything and buy stuff from Army surplus stores and buy a one-way ticket to the West Coast with backpack full of Army stuff and start hiking and then never go back home and just keep traveling and joining the military and all this. I mean, And half the shit, Troy, 90% of the stories that we can't talk to on here about because of YouTube stuff, violations that we live through on a daily basis, it's just not possible for them. So it's just not there. And so it's just different. It's like that for,
Yeah, you don't.
Boomers can understand it. Boomers are closer to us in that regard.
Yeah.
The average boomer growing up was much like the pretty much lifestyle we had through 1991, 92.
Yeah.
As far as the craziness factor goes. So with that out of the way, I think that might be it. So we have this last one I want to talk about real fast, Troy. Teenagers, toxic masculinity. Actually, let's not do that. Let's get out of here. Let's do this.
Let's talk about me and my toxic masculine.
All right, Troy. Well, that wraps this one up. Thank you for being here, as always, in this continuing conversation, this new way that we're doing Free Will Burning podcast. We'll pick this conversation back up later this week. Troy, I know you're going to have something to say at the end, but I'm going to go ahead and say it right now to everybody. We'll see you next time, man.
Adios.